Kris.
And I'm Wyatt Elliott from Notebook Entertainment.
And this is Horrorland News presents Review This.
That was wonderful.
Bravo!
I loved that.
Oh, it was great.
Well, it was pretty good.
Well, it wasn't bad.
It stinks.
Hello and welcome. Another horror show this time. Midnight Mass. And, this show, I didn't know what to expect out of it. I got the idea that there's going to be a lot of religious inclinations going on, but I left it kind of up there, and good thing I did. Enter this show with no expectations. There's only two people that you might recognize, and that's from very interesting shows, like Raul Coley. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, which really sucks. He's from iZombie, and also Bly Manor, I think it was. And I don't remember the guy's name, but from Disjointed, which was a Netflix show, Taekwon Douglas, which is really weird to see. He's like Ned Flanders' mayor in this show. It's very weird. Anyways, the one thing this show does really well, especially with how heavy-handed it is with the religious indoctrination, probably the wrong term, whatever, but it keeps it in line with infection symbolism, because the further you go into the show, the more you can see how they're being symbolic with an infection being implemented into the system, and the more the infection seems to grow, the stronger the religion symbolism is kind of kicking in. It's very odd, because they use a lot of terminology. They stay very rooted in it, but they are also showing, while it's like the negative side for the religion, they also talk about the positive side of a different religion. Raul Coley, he's a sheriff who's Muslim, and one major thing they actually talk about is post 9/11 and what it's like for him to be a cop in New York post 9/11, and it gets very dark very quick. It's the one thing that is very cool is to read all these people, mostly tweets I saw that were to Raul, saying how accurate he got it and how expertly he portrayed it, and he does. He's a phenomenal actor. Raul's a great actor. I've yet to see him not be enjoyable to watch and also professional. He's so freaking underrated. Anyways, this is something I have to get out of the way immediately, right now. A big trigger warning for those who want to watch the show. Okay, I'm going to read it verbatim, having my little notes. Episode 1 and 2 have cat and dog deaths. So here's a spoiler coming in 3, 2, 1. In episode 1, during the later half, at night, there's a few boys. They leave town. They're going to a nearby area. And there's a bunch of cats being shown. You can hear them. Some are mating, stuff like that. But there's at one point you see a dead cat, and then one gets snatched away. Later on, if I believe it's in episode 2, there's dozens. It's just a bunch of dead cats along a shore on this beach. And I'm not talking like, oh, here's a handful. It's just, it stretches on as far as you can see. It's just dead cats all along the shore. Now, you don't really see anything actively happening to the cats. You just see post-mortem cats. So, obviously, they're going to be stuffed animals on that. The hardest one, though, is in episode 2. Halfway through episode 2, there is a potluck going on. There's a dog named Pike. Pike is a very great-looking dog. I want to say, to me, I got, like, Mastiff breed vibes from it. Very cool dog. And this is one where it's almost like a murder mystery, because you actually have to pay attention and you'll see what happens to Pike. So if you're paying attention during the scene, you'll see what happens, but the show never tells you exactly who did it. You have to pay attention, which is very cool. But someone poisons Pike and he dies from it. Here's the thing. It is very gruesome. You will see the dog, like, oozing vomit of, like, saliva and blood. It's very... And actively doing it. I don't know how they got the dog doing it. I don't know if it was a puppet. I don't want to look into it. Don't want to know. It's very hard to watch. I have a couple of dogs myself. I've got a couple of cats myself. The cat deaths I could stand. It was not a big deal. You don't see anything actively happening to the cats. But Pike is very hard to watch. And that is about halfway through. So if you start watching and you're at night when the boys leave the island, be careful. There will be a couple. You'll see a dead cat and then a cat being pulled into the bushes. And then the beginning of episode 2, you'll see a bunch of dead cats on the beach. So you might want to speed through that. And then about, like I said, halfway through the potluck, there is Pike. You'll see a scene where he's handed some food. That is when you need to start fast forwarding for a good couple minutes. You'll know it's a huge event. Everyone's right there trying to figure out what's going on, who did it, and it's a big to-do. It is not... It's very hard to miss this. It's a big thing in one of the episodes. The show looks phenomenal. The way that they play with light and sound to immerse you into it, it's kind of like the way they go about with light is kind of how you'd expect it to go. And I want to save my spoilers for their end as to why they play with light. But the way sound is, they're very subtle with it, especially with the religious undertones. They're more overtones at certain points, but they start undertones, and then it builds up. And when they're singing songs, and there's a lot of times like that, you will barely hear it, and then you're not paying attention, and all of a sudden it's blaring. It's very loud, but it kind of makes it realize like how it creeps up on you. It adds to that like odd factor, because let's face it, in some cases, religion can be downright scary. I already talked about before about how each episode, there seems to be the mystery that lies within the tiny town just keeps on growing. The other thing that the show does really well is it juxtaposes religion and infection. So the way they're symbolic with both is very neat, in which I was, at a certain point, nicknaming what's going on the gospel, because the way they talk about the gospel, it's almost like that's what the infection should be called. Again, I'm going to save the spoilers from near the end, but you get this sort of idea where how heavy-handed they can be with religion is also the way the infection goes hand in hand. And they use that perfectly, where if it's something negative, they're using verses from the Bible to put a positive spin on it. It's kind of neat that way, because the fact of the matter is they're using the good book to defend horrible actions, death actions, bad things. And with the show, they keep the evolution thing going, where how religions has grown, and you'll see that with symbolism, like how the initial time you see the church, there's only a handful of people actually going there, and then the following day there's even less, because it's, there's the Sunday meeting and then there's the normal weekday meeting. So of course Sunday meeting, handful of people. Monday, not as many. But as the show continues to grow and evolve, the congregation grows and evolves, and there's more special roles being tied to certain people, because they're inside the little inner circle that's going on. And that actually kind of makes it so you see what they're going for with these religious undertones that become overtones, and how that's treated as the infection. So it's something very fun, and it really stays rooted with the whole creepiness factor. Initially, you're going to see some people and I don't know if it was just me, I don't think it will be, there are going to be some actors you're going to be able to tell they're wearing prosthetics. It's just the way they act and sound. It was okay, but you get the idea, you get that kind of vibe that they're not actually just old people. They're people wearing prosthetics. And we're going to get into the spoilers now and explain as to why they're wearing prosthetics. So, spoilers from here on out.
3, 2, 1.
The reason why they're wearing prosthetics is the infection is vampirism. This old, dementia-ridden pastor, preacher, Monsignor, he goes out to Mecca? He goes on a religious journey. And out there, he gets lost in the desert. He finds this cave. And inside the cave is the angel. And that's a very unique thing. They never call it a vampire. They never say vampire, vampirism, demon, infection, contagion, any disease, nothing like that. There may be something involving. They're very careful with their wording, and that's something again to sort of tie it in with the fact that like you could almost call the infection the gospel, because Father Pruitt, he's so adamant that this vampire is an angel because it has wings and it gave him everlasting life. It actually made him go from an old man back to a young man, and I guess that's the thing, like when you die and go to heaven and you're given everlasting life, you're at your peak age. You're so the time in your life where you're looking your best, feeling your best, you're at your strongest, you're not too young, you're not too old, you're right in that sweet spot. Something I've gone way past. And everyone starts getting to that. So there's a girl in a wheelchair. All of a sudden, she's where she was before the wheelchair, so she can walk and everything perfectly fine. There's a couple of parents that the father, he's got a bad back. The mom's wearing glasses. Pretty soon, dad's not really worrying about his back anymore. He starts dancing with his wife and stuff like that. The wife, mom, starts taking the glasses off. She doesn't need the glasses anymore. Hair goes from mom and dad. The gray starts to go away, and then all of a sudden less of the prosthetics are on, and you can see the wrinkles are gone, the age spots are gone, and literally people are de-aging. There's even one woman who is the love interest of Father Pruitt. She's actually one of the reasons why he came back, and it's actually a neat thing where the daughter of the doctor of the island where they're at, she's of the LGBTQ variety. I can't remember if she's either lesbian or bisexual, and the whole thing is they don't make it a big focus, which is great. I love that. It's not a big deal, but she really acknowledges the fact that the father, he's watching her and kind of staring at her, and she's just kind of creeped out by it, because she says, yeah, Father Pruitt used to do the same thing. He'd just stare at me. I don't know if he just knew the fact that she was not straight. The interesting thing, though, is, huge spoiler, that's his daughter. Father Pruitt was not celibate the entire time. He fathered the doctor. That's why he's staring at her, because he fathered a daughter of a married man. Not something a preacher, priest, whatever the heck he is, should be doing. So it's kind of neat that's why he's not staring at her because, she's not straight. He's staring at her because, that's my daughter. I can't do anything about that. And that's infuriating. So he's just staring nonstop so often at her. They do address it, and the second to last or the last episode. But that's one thing where another de-aging thing, the doctor's mom who lives with her, she's, again, riddled also with Alzheimer's or dementia, both, whatever. And all of a sudden she starts de-aging, and you can tell because the actress actually does a very good job. She watches how her tone of voice is, like her volume, her inflection. She sounds very weak. And then when she starts coming around, it's still kind of gravelly, but it's strong. She does a very phenomenal job. And the way she holds herself, she's very fragile and weak. But then as time goes on, through the communion, blood of Christ, she becomes younger. And that way, rather than, just be stuck on ground level, she's able to go walk around, go up to the second floor, not worry about breaking her hip, literally. Her daughter starts running a gamut of questions from anything from what dad used to be like, what games she used to play as a child, what chores they did as a family. Big old range, and boom, she's knocking them out left and right without she's knocking them out without encumbrance. It's actually pretty amazing, and because you're actually immersed in the moment too. It's actually very cool because she's not bothering with the whole thing like, oh, I gotta answer these quick. It feels more natural for her. She's just like, oh, there wasn't a lot to do on the island, so of course we'd go hang out over here and the girls and boys. This whole thing where she never felt the rush to sort of defend herself. It felt natural for her to all of a sudden be de-aging. That's how subtle it is. It's actually this whole thing where she doesn't even really acknowledge it. She just feels better. And it ends in a very unique way where it does end in an apocalypse of sorts. The island burns with only 2 people, a man and a woman, on a boat leaving the island as the island burns. And everyone is either dead or infected. And the problem is, when you're infected and your entire island burns, there's nowhere to hide from the sun. And that's the only thing we know about, is the sun purifies you. They don't really say cure or kill, because here's the unique thing. This is actually very cool. The doctor takes blood samples out of people, and she leaves it out in the sun one time, or the sun gets on it, and all of a sudden it's just, it starts bursting in flames. And they show this whole thing where she's like, oh, so it's going to kill us. She said, no. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, where it does not just set everything on fire. It doesn't kill everything. It only burns away what is the infection. It only leaves behind your own blood. So there's one guy, he literally sacrifices himself. And the way he does it is to show the truth by bringing this girl that he's bring his love interest on the boat, and it's kind of like, I'm just going to show it to you. And he commits suicide by waiting for the sun to rise, and he just en fuego, he goes up. And the way it's used as a sort of redeeming factor for him too, because he's also a guy who has murdered someone. He was a drunk driver. He got off with a few scrapes and scratches. That was about it. The girl, though, he hit, she wasn't as lucky. She died, and she haunts him every single night. And it's also kind of neat by when the one time when he kind of redeems himself, and he kind of shows the one thing that could actually, through his own sacrifice, he is able to show true evil, sort of thing. It's kind of weird in its symbolism, but it also deals with this dream where he's always on this boat, and he's on the ocean, no one around for miles, and the sun's not risen yet, but it looks like it's about to rise. So it's like this whole thing where it's foreshadowing, because once once the sun rises, he's gone, dead and gone. There's no coming back, because he was fully turned. There are those that are partially turned, and the way they do about it is kind of sort of a Vampire the Masquerade way of going about it. There are those that take communion, So they have the vampire blood in their system, but they're not vampires yet. They don't have enough of it in their system. Like, the infections have taken over. Again, the doctor's saying, out in the sun, it kills off anything that's not you and leaves only your blood behind. Here's the fun part. Those that are killed when they're infected enough, they come back full-on vampire. They are thirsty and ready to binge eat. And that's what it comes down to. You're either one of the holy, or you're not. You're just not. That's it. You have two choices. Join us or die. Or become cattle, basically. It's a very cool show. I loved it. I've watched it twice. I'd be tempted to watch it a third time because everyone does a phenomenal job. The way things are done and how the characters, I don't want to say relatable, but their connection to others. Like, I feel like there's a few characters that others might go, yeah, I know a person like that. I hate them. I know a person just like that, where they use that religion to hide behind. And I want to make it perfectly clear, I am not knocking on religion. I'm not. It's just what the show is doing. There are people out there like this. There are. Let's face it. They exist. Moving on. It's okay with the lighting. When they go full on vampire, the light almost acts like a radiation or energy. So when a person who's turned full on vampire, they're looking at a light, and it's not solid. It kind of shimmers and waves and radiates, and because they talk about the way they see the world as differently, and they like hear the world differently because, again, enhanced senses. And the one thing that's kind of funny is, unless they're killed outright by a vampire, I believe everyone that's bitten by a full-on vampire comes back as a full-on vampire because they have died already and they're infected. And those are the only two requirements, is you're infected and you die. That's it. Either the infection kills you or you are just murdered and you will come back. As long as your body's not destroyed, I believe you just come back perfectly fine. It's a very cool thing where, like, they'll show like how the vampire mythos can be used scientifically, because while there's a straight up mythical version of the vampire, big old wings, bald, stands probably like 7 feet tall, does not say a single word. I don't think it speaks anything. But you gotta remember, it's been locked up in a cave for centuries, maybe even longer. And it's even funnier if you think about it. The father Pruitt, he brings it over to his little island home in a trunk. So it had to be, all squished up in a trunk. And it's kind of neat with how they'll play with all the idealism, or all the ideals that religion and infection sort of follow, and they really do a great job. I can't stop saying enough of like using the two to subtly kind of back and forth, to use them to pivot off each other. It's kind of cool. Where you'll have a hard time be like, okay, where does the science begin and religion end, sort of thing. I love this show. It's phenomenal. Midnight Mass. It's a great show. Some of the best actors and actresses I've seen. I mean, my God, even the kids are good. The sound quality, again, whoever was the audio mixer was not paid enough. Phenomenal. The lighting was done incredibly well. Just everything. The camera work, the directing, the writing, everything. I was just sucked right in. No, you're not getting me off this couch. I'm watching every episode. It's great. It's phenomenal. Midnight Mass. Netflix. Watch it now.
It's not funny.
Open your minds. This could be the end of everything. Open your hearts.
I want you to run.
I am so glad that you'll be with us for what comes next.